Welcome back to Fabricating Awesome Stuff. Sonex Aircraft designed a cooling system for the turbocharger that's designed to keep the bearing block of the turbo cool, to give it longevity, and then also to help keep the oil from coking up on the bearing upon shutdown. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how I attached the coolant reservoir and the radiator to the engine mount on the Sonex aircraft that I'm building. So let me know what you think in the comments. Also, remember to like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of these updates. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and thanks for watching. In order to install the cooling system for the turbo, we're going to need to install this little reservoir for like the radiator, and it needs to be mounted with the cap higher than the radiator, so it's going to need to be mounted somewhere in here. So I'll need to make a bracket that will attach to this part and to the engine mount. So we'll figure out a bracket there for that, and then the radiator itself goes over on this side, over on the pilot side, and it needs to be mounted somewhere about in here. So I'm thinking I can make a bracket to go to this screw hole here, and then go to the engine mount, and then make another hole here for a screw to go into a mount there. So somewhere in there is what I'm going to need to do. So we'll have to see what I can figure out. It's going to be a matter of engineering some brackets. So we'll try that out and see how it goes. I made a bracket for the coolant reservoir. I put a standoff so that it doesn't interfere with the engine mount. And we're going to mount it to these two holes here. So first we're going to go ahead and attach it to the can. And I'll put a washer on it first. Put a washer on it. And I put a piece of tape on the wrench so that I can stick the nut in the wrench and it'll stay rather than falling out. And we'll go ahead and get this started on the screw. Okay, that nut's started, so we'll get it. Put another nut in here. Screw, install the washer on there, put the nut in the general spot it needs to go, and go ahead and get started. And these have elastic stop nuts on them so that they'll stay tight, they won't come loose. I put an ADL clamp on the engine mount. Okay, we'll get this kind of started in here. Okay, orient it where I want it, and that looks pretty good there. So let's go ahead and tighten it up. Now, when I put this on here permanently, I'll use some Loctite on this screw to keep it from coming loose, but we're just putting everything, we're just mocking everything up at this moment. Okay, so you can see that it's attached to the 8L clamp, and it's in the position we want it, right there. So this will be higher than the radiator. Okay, so we got the radiator. I'm going to mount it somewhere in here. Got the 8L clamp on here. It's going to go on here, something like this. So, figure out where I want to drill the hole on the radiator itself. I think that'll work right there. That's it right there. So we want the hole to be about in the center of this. Okay, we'll use that as a pilot hole so we know where we want the hole in the radiator. Okay, so next we're going to need to take out some of these fins in order to put a nut in there. Okay, so this area right here, we need to remove these cooling fins so we can get a nut in there. So I'll carefully wasn't really cutting, so I think what we'll do is we'll just crush these fins out of the way in order to get a nut in there. There'll be one spot where there's not going to be a lot of airflow right there. However, there's enough cooling surface that I don't think it's going to really affect it that much. And yet we have to secure this nut. So it looks like that's working for us. Be able to get a nut in there so that we can get a screw and a nut. So the screw will go in there, and we just need to go with a little bigger hole. Okay, so we have a bracket attached. So we have the bracket, and we have the 8L clamp. So we want it to attach somewhere about in here like this. Get it started on the 8L clamp. And get it started through. Okay, we got the nut started, so Okay, under the right side I'm just putting a little block of wood to kind of block it up, and then use a tie wrap around the engine mount just to kind of hold it in position while I get this in place. Okay, now we'll hold it kind of up in place where we want it and pull the zip tie tight and see if that'll hold. Not quite, but what we'll do is we'll get another zip tie. Okay, pull a zip tie here. And go through here. We'll get it finagled here. There we go. Now, okay, so by holding it with this block of wood and the zip ties, we're holding it kind of right up where we want it to be now. Here's a close-up of what we've been doing. You can see that I built this bracket, and it's out of aluminum angle, attached it to the reservoir, and then used a offset to attach it to the 8L clamp, and that way it's the can is not touching the engine mount, so that gives it a little bit of clearance. And it is mounted, the can is mounted higher than the radiator. You can see the radiator to the right there. So over on the radiator side, I made a bracket, attached it to the radiator, and then the other end of the bracket to an 8L clamp on the engine mount. So it's nice and solid right there, nice and solid. And on the right side here, I put an 8L clamp on the radiator, and then another one on the engine mount, and a piece of aluminum bar between the two 8L clamps. And that makes that sit there nice and solid also. So that's a good start towards the system. I still have to run all the cooling lines, and then also there's a water pump and a thermostat and so forth that have to be installed in order to make all the system work. But that gives you an idea of how I fabricated it to actually get the radiator and the coolant can in place. Thanks for watching.